Is poetry still relevant today? And every single time, that question makes me smile. Think about that last song that made you stop what you were doing. That last film dialogue that stayed with you for days. That last Instagram reel that gave you goosebumps. Well, that was poetry. You just didn't call it that.
Well, poetry has never left us. The only thing is, we're probably finding it in newer places. On OTT platforms, maybe. On social media, maybe. Maybe on the radio. What's happening is, newer voices are joining in. New hearts are maybe being bound. Well, if there are more speakers, there are more listeners. And all this is still poetry. At its best, maybe. We do realize that we live in an age where things are moving very fast, faster than we can keep pace with. Yes, we live today in the age of AI. But one thing which will continue to be the same forever is that poetry can never be replaced. And why? Because it connects. It connects, has been connecting for the last 1,000 years. What has changed today? Maybe it's our sense of beauty. Where did we see it earlier? 100 years ago, or maybe even earlier? Poets like Keats saw it in nature, saw it in the flowers that were blooming, saw it in the running streams, saw it in rainbows and clouds. And what about today? We see beauty somewhere else. I probably see it in the confident walk of the Dalit woman who was able to break her shackles and walk with her head held high, maybe into a boardroom where you least expected her to be. So, what has changed? It is our sense of beauty, it is our appreciation of beauty. But all this is still poetry. It will continue to be poetry. Today, we move on to looking at poetry differently. Well, if the writing of poetry has changed, so too has the reading and appreciation of poetry. But yet, we still have it touching the very core of our being. Yes, we still continue to empathize, we still continue to appreciate, and that is what makes poetry eternal and immortal.
Friends, when I first heard Indira ma'am speak about poetry in this way, something felt different. I believe all of us, me included, we have grown up thinking that poetry was something to be studied for the exams, parts of which were memorized, parts of which were used for recitation purposes. But over the years, haven't we all realized that poetry means much more than this, isn't it? This new series of poetry was born exactly from this realization, friends. Poetry now has to be approached and seen from a very different viewpoint. It is not just to be read, but felt. It is not just to be taught. So, friends, whether you are a curious soul, or you are a student, or perhaps you are also one of them who has never picked up a book of poems to read, this space belongs to you. It is specially for you. Because we are now going to look at poetry from today's lens, from the lens of what's happening in the modern world, from the lens of how poetry touches each one of us, that has to be looked at, very different. So, friends, this is a new format, a new journey. In Sanskrit, we call it Prayanan, a new journey. And believe me, friends, I'm so happy that each one of you are going to join us on this new journey of Poets and Poetry by Indira.